Hi, and welcome to this episode of Our Guest Is, presented by My East Coast Experience Media in partnership with RBC. I'm Natalie Fournier. Our Guest Is introduces us to a resilient group of people typically called immigrants, but perhaps better described as entrepreneurs, community builders, and survivors. In each episode, we'll be hearing all about their journeys to Canada's East Coast in their own words. Today, our guest is Mohammad Al Masalma. Just a little bit about you, Mohammad. So you're originally from Syria.
Correct.
And you escaped the crisis in Syria and moved to Jordan with your family. I believe it was your two siblings, or was your whole entire family?
The whole entire family,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Yeah.
So you moved to Nova Scotia in 2016 with your two siblings. And you work at Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia, helping newcomers settle to life in the province. And you founded Mosy Photography, a professional and videography business in 2018, which today is considered one of the top 10 photography studios in Halifax and received 2 Platinum Awards from Community Votes Halifax 2022. And Mohammad was also recognized as one of the most inspiring immigrants in Atlantic Canada in 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So you had a whirlwind path to Halifax from Jordan. Is it correct you only had days to process this whole change
That's
and make
true.
it happen?
Yeah. Actually, so I came on a scholarship to Halifax, and the way this scholarship works, because it's a scholarship / settlement or immigration to Canada. So I landed as a permanent resident in Canada. The way it works, they don't tell you where will you be studying until they finish the whole immigration process first.
Okay.
So once I passed all the interviews, security check, health check, all of these things, someone from NSCC where I studied reached out to me and they said, "Well, by the way, you'll be studying in Halifax." And I'm like, "Where the hell is Halifax?" So yeah, I had to Google everything, and they told me, you have 2 weeks to get ready. And I asked them. The funny thing, I asked them, what should I expect? What's the weather like? And it was August.
Yeah.
And they're like, I was in Jordan at the time, and she said that, oh, it's just like in Jordan. So yeah, so silly me, I come with the shorts and t-shirts, and the day I landed, September 1st, it was rainy, stormy, and a disaster. So that was a
Nice
funny
introduction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention too, from a recent edition of my Halifax Experience magazine, you had mentioned this process that you came to Nova Scotia based on a Facebook post.
Correct.
Offering free English courses. Those courses turned into the prep courses for that scholarship that you mentioned. Offered by Student Refugee Program from World University Service of Canada.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that you had missed the application deadline, got in because you were told we didn't have enough applicants. Did that scare you? Like, were you like, why aren't people applying for this?
Honestly, it first of all, it was a shock for me because, like, the first day when we went to that English class, the teacher asked us, why don't you go around the room and ask each other, like, a question just so you can meet each other, basically. Okay. So I asked, if you are basically a refugee in Jordan, you have one question to ask. When are you getting out of Jordan?
Right, yeah.
So I asked that question. So, like, what are you doing next year? And all of them, they had the same answer. Next year, I will be in Canada. Next year, I'll be in Canada. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, why all of you have the same answer? And they told me, oh, because there's this scholarship that is happening, and we are all part of it. And I'm like, how can I get in? And they were like, oh, honestly, the deadline is over, and that's why we're just in the preparation before we travel. And I asked, can I get who should I get in touch with? And they gave me the email of that person, and I emailed her. And she said, well, it's your lucky day, because we extended the 2 eligibility criteria. They said that we need the age and, the deadline, the time. And at the time, they were accepting students from 18 to 25, and I was 29.
Okay.
And then they said, well, you know what, just send the application. I did, and they accepted me.
Oh, wow. So you were too old.
Too old, exactly. Yeah.
At a fresh 29.
I know.
But they still took your application.
They took my application.
It didn't scare
crazy.
you? We were like, what's going on in Canada?
Honestly, no, because to be honest, I just wanted to leave from Jordan.
Yeah,
and, and any opportunity coming my way, I would take it.
Yeah, which is really kind of a risk, right, in general.
It
is. Scary to think about, you were just so willing to find a home and safety that you were just willing to do anything and go anywhere.
Absolutely. It's, I'm coming to a whole new country, whole different culture, different language. Honestly, I thought I can speak English when I came to Canada until I actually landed in Canada and I saw how fast people talk, especially on the first day in school. People were using like local terms and
Yeah.
local funny jokes and
Slang,
stuff. And
yeah.
I'm sitting there in the middle like an idiot, and I'm like, is this English? Like, what's going on here? But honestly, it's after all these years, it's the best decision I ever made.
Excellent. Yeah, and kind of back to that arrival in Halifax and that, people are talking fast and busy and everyone just naturally knows what to do. And you had mentioned that because you were so rushed to move here, you didn't know how to get a driver's license. You didn't know where the nearest grocery store was. So what was going through your mind in those first few weeks besides people talking fast and have, slang terms and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, honestly, the first week, I remember, so my brother and I, we came on the same scholarship. He ended up studying at Dalhousie, and I am at NSCC. And because NSCC doesn't have dorms, so I stayed with like a Canadian guy.
Okay.
He lives alone. And my brother ended up living in the dorm at Dalhousie. So we were separate. And I didn't see him for the first week in Canada. I didn't know how to take the bus. I didn't know how to cross from Dartmouth to Halifax. I didn't know anything. So I remember the first week I called my brother and I'm like, why did we come here? Like, we had friends, we had family, we had life. I was working. Why did we come here? And he gave me a very good brotherly advice. He told me to shut up. And,
Is he a younger brother?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, yeah.
He is. So I did. I shut up and I soldiered on, I guess.
Yeah.
But honestly, no, it was difficult at the beginning. It's everything is new. Everything is different. From this most simplest thing. From back home, I didn't even have a bank account. I didn't have like a credit card or a debit. I didn't know what's the difference between the both of them. And suddenly, I'm the first week in Canada, and I have a bank account. I have 2 cards. I don't know what the hell to do with them, and so I had to figure out everything by myself. So it was very overwhelming first. And I am a very sociable person. I like to meet people. And the first week, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know where to go, so it was really difficult. But once I started, getting out of my comfort zone, introducing myself to people. Although my English was horrible at the time, and I was very shy, probably used a million wrong grammar.
Yeah.
But I ended up, chatting with some people, and once I started, making friends especially in my class, life became a little bit easier.
Going back to being originally from Syria, you turned to photography to tell the real story of Syria and its people during the obvious challenging times that Syria has been experiencing for a long time. Can you tell us more about what these photos captured and what they meant to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole thing started actually when I was in Syria, because when the whole, uprising happened in Syria, I saw how the government media is, showing us to the rest of the world. And I'm in my neighborhood, and I see people peacefully gathering, protesting. They want more freedom. They want more rights. And on the media, we're showed as terrorists. We want to, destroy the country, whatever. And I'm like, this is not us.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show what is actually happening. So I started taking videos, putting it on YouTube, sending it to, social media, Facebook, whatever, taking photos of what's actually happening. And so the whole thing started from there. Because I thought the government, it's our government, it's our country. They love us, and the way they showed us that's it's completely opposite from the truth. So that's why I started taking photos and videos, because I want to tell the true story, and the media wasn't telling 0.5% of the truth.
And when you shared those photos on social media, were you scared at all for doing that? Scared
Absolutely.
of potential backlash?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there was a backlash. But from what I saw previously from friends, we started to use different accounts, different nicknames, going under very anonymous, random names.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the government, they have what we call them spies or eyes everywhere. And they ended up coming and picking us up, for me and my 2 brothers. And we ended up in prison, government prison for a month.
For posting pictures?
Yep. And that was the first time they took us twice. And the first time because of what we were doing, and they after they didn't find anything that's actually incriminating, they had to let us go. The second time we were helping people displaced because of the bombing. They lost their houses, and so we were just finding them shelter, providing food, and in the eye of the government, we're doing acts that it's against the government. I know
these are things that people do every day.
Absolutely, but in there, what they think is that those people were bombed for a reason, and they should not be helped.
Wow.
So we were taken again for the second time for another month, and honestly, the second time we had to, thankfully the government is so corrupt, so we had to bribe the government officials to release us. And then that's when my mom said, actually, third time is not a charm.
No.
We need to leave. And that's how we left Syria.
Can you tell me what those 2 separate months were like? I mean, clearly, I don't know what that would have been like. I mean, can you describe what was happening to you every day?
Honestly, it felt like every day it felt like a year, because we were put in a really tiny room, and there were like about 50 people in that room. So I literally had 1 foot to sleep, to stand, to eat, to do everything in there. And every few hours, the jailer would come and pick one of the people in there and take them for torture, investigation. They need information. And then, of course, our turn came. And the first question, where are the weapons? And I'm like, do you know why I'm here? I literally was feeding people.
I used the internet.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was feeding people.
people.
That's it. And they're like, yeah, that's bullshit. We need the weapon. And I'm like, I don't. My weapon is literally my phone, and you have it. Yeah. And they were like, okay, you need to tell us about someone who has weapons. So honestly, because they're so stupid, they didn't know why I'm there in the first place. So I was just giving them random names of actually dead people, and they were writing them down, and that's how I got away from that torture or whatever. Yeah. But the second time, unfortunately, when they took us, in their eye, they got us red-handed, helping people.
Right.
That's the crime. So they didn't even ask a question. They started the torture immediately. So they just take us one by one and use anything that they think of, from tasers to like wooden sticks, and hit you whatever they find.
Do you mind talking about this with people? I mean, I know you were just talking about it, but
yeah, no, absolutely. That's the whole reason since I came to Canada, I am first thing, the person who got in touch with me with the NSTC, they asked me, do you mind to talk about your experience as a refugee and how you left Syria? And I'm like, absolutely not. I would love to, because I want to tell the whole world what's happening there, because I saw the local media, how they portray us on the media. So imagine the international media, what's going to do. So that's why I do things like this. I'm a very open book. I share and listen, I consider myself one of the lucky ones who actually get the chance to leave Syria, or had enough money to bribe the government officials to get out. Mm-hmm. A lot of people died in there, in the prison, and nobody heard of them. Nobody knows them. They're just numbers. Yeah. So I'm very. Listen. I want to tell the whole world of what's going on. The president is a criminal. Is a war criminal. Genocides. He used all kinds of weapons of mass destruction, gas, everything, and just unfortunately the international community is just watching.
I think too, there's maybe for people who live in countries where that is not happening, it's almost like we move on to the next story.
Exactly.
There's something else that's going to happen, and we forget about it. And I see that with the war in Ukraine a lot too, that there was a time before the 1-year anniversary, I guess if you want to call it an anniversary of it beginning, where I think we were forgetting about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't top of mind. And I think that's, it's worth you as someone who lived there and experienced that, to remind people that it happened, it's happening, and it happened to you.
Absolutely, yeah. And honestly, I get what you're saying. Listen. I am from Syria, and since I came here, social media algorithms started to like removing all like news related to Syria from my feed. So I even got distant from what's happening there, unless I actually search for it. So I understand, but so that's why I do these kind of things. I love to talk about these things, and I know Syria is an old topic, but unfortunately, it's still happening. And recently, we saw what happened with the earthquake in Turkey and Syria.
Yes.
And unfortunately, like this is what's happening to the Syrian people. Not only the war, but literally all ways of death. We experienced that.
And do you think that the earthquake got enough international attention that it deserved? Do you think that people in the U.S. and Canada, other first world countries, let's call them, really cared? I know it sounds harsh to say, but do you think, as a someone who lived there, who experienced that, do you think that there was real, genuine care and concern?
I would say yes and no. Yes, that's actually media started to show and cover 24 hours, but no, in terms of the support that is required, especially to Syria. We saw, especially the UN help. They were, because in their eye, the government of Syria, it's a sovereign country, and you have to address the government. And of course, the government's not going to allow all that help to come in, because that area, especially the north of Syria, is out of the government control. So they don't want to help the people there. So they delayed as the help, the support, as much as they can. And we've seen videos of the actual UN products, food, stuff like that they sent, even clothes or blankets that they sent to the north of Syria. It is sold in the market in Damascus.
So it's not helping.
It's not. It didn't even reach north of Syria.
My gosh.
So that's what is annoying, and I think again, the help went to Turkey. Turkey needs it, of course, but at least Turkey is a country with functional government, functional streets, support. Everything that you send is going to reach there. Syria is not, especially the north, because it's out of the government control. I would say more than half of the support that was sent there didn't reach there.
That's very disappointing.
It is. And honestly, I don't know how people who are especially living in north of Syria, how are they still surviving? I don't know how.
I guess it's the same courage that, we always talk about in this podcast of people like you who tell the story, and you just think about the everyday life that we would never know as people that, I guess, were born and raised in Canada or the States or England or wherever. We don't know. We see it. We don't know. We're seeing it on TV.
That's true.
And you took the courage as well to share the real life, the photos on social media, and paid for it.
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
So when you came to Halifax, you continued your passion for photography, obviously sharing different pictures.
Correct.
What was that transition like from, not only going from doing it to potentially save lives, to bring attention, now you're doing it for a totally different reason. And was that transition, were you thankful that it was different photos that you were taking, or did it hurt you a little bit?
Honestly, I'm thankful because, first of all, when I was taking those photos, I knew I was in danger and something could happen any second. Here, at least, I'm safer. I know I'm standing behind the camera and I'm safe. And the subject that I'm shooting is safe too, as well, and a dog or a family or something. So it's a whole different experience. But again, it's the passion continued. When I came here, again, unfortunately, I didn't have the financial means to start a whole business or buy a camera in the first place. So I was using my phone, whatever I have. And I remember, God bless him, my friend, he had a camera that I used to borrow him.
He just did air quotes.
Yes.
Borrow.
Literally every 2 days. And I'm like, oh, there's this, I would like to go for a walk and just like shoot. And he's like, yeah, okay. I remember Canon 60D I used to borrow from him and just take photos randomly, and I taught myself what's Lightroom, what's Adobe Photoshop, what it's all these things, and how to use them, YouTube or any free course available. And then I was like, you know what, I'll create an Instagram account and start sharing my photos. And I noticed people started to, get attention for what I post. And finally, I started with the encouragement of friends and people that I know. They started hiring me for small gigs here and there. Most of them are free, but some of them are paid. So finally, saved enough money to buy my friend's camera.
Nice.
And he was like, thank God, finally. But yeah, it's all started there.
So you taught yourself photography, taught yourself, editing videos, taking videos, and now you teach courses about all of that and about social media and using it, for people who might be interested in starting their own businesses or starting their own photography businesses.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have a YouTube channel that not only touches on your business, but also just life in Nova Scotia and coming here. And do you consider yourself a mentor?
Yes.
Is it hard to admit?
It is hard, actually. It is. It's honestly, first of all, nobody calls me that.
I just did.
Yeah, thank you. No, I actually, through my work at ISANS, which is the Immigrant Services Association of Nova Scotia, in one of my positions before my current position, I worked with youth, immigrant youth, and a lot of them, they're young. They want to post their perfect Snapchat picture or whatever. So I started offering, photography 101, how to take a good photo, the composition, what's free mobile apps that you can use to edit those photos, how to edit a photo before and after and stuff like that. And, I used to beg them to come to any valuable class, planning for your education in Canada or
the
something
real
like
life
that.
stuff.
Exactly. And they're like, I even bribe them with pizza or fruit or something. 3 or 4 people would show up. When I posted the photography stuff, 30 people showed up.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's all started there. And actually, I'm proud of this. One of those youth, he started his photography business and he's doing well.
You're not scared of the competition?
Honestly, no. I actually
another photographer in the business.
I would listen. I feel like he's like my little baby, and I'm proud of him. I actually, every time I have a gig that I need multiple photographers or something, I actually hire him too.
Nice.
So it feels nice that I can support them too.
Have you ever encountered roadblocks or criticism from family, friends from choosing? Because photography is art. It's your passion. You're making some money off of it. I've learned over, talking with people in this podcast that art is not really something that parents of immigrant children really like.
Yeah.
So.
Well, first of all, Nova Scotia is small enough to start, a business that, unfortunately, these days, anyone with a phone, they call themselves a photographer.
Yes.
But I started with a few friends that or people that I know. They started photography as well, and their business is booming. And I consider myself, I'm still learning, of course. I consider that I started a successful business. It's not my full-time job yet. There is competition. The market might be a little bit oversaturated. So that's why I'm still looking for my niche in photography to focus on that. I still do all kinds of photography, weddings, portraits, family, real estate, anything, just so, first of all, to sustain a living. But as you said, art is, unfortunately, it doesn't pay off the bills all the time. Especially when you do your business part-time, not as a side gig, not a full-time job. Unfortunately, I have, so many responsibilities that I can't just, leave everything and focus on my photography. I have a family to support. I have so many bills to pay. So I can't take that step to leave everything and focus on photography. But fingers crossed, hopefully one day soon. I want to build, take my business to actually hire those, like my student, the newcomers, also to help them to, reach their goals.
What are your favorite moments to capture in photography? Because you were covering a lot of bases there with
I
like
do. I
real
do.
estate to dogs to
Yes.
kids. So
Honestly, you know, it's obvious. It's the weddings. You know, it's a beautiful moment. You're capturing someone's their biggest day, and you know, there are so many emotions in there. And luckily, I get to do, you know, not only take photos, but I also take videos, so I can literally capture the perfect moment. And every time you know, I send the video to the couple, and they send me their feedback. Hopefully, after they love it,
Yeah.
it touches my heart that you know, I was part of that day, and I was able to capture what they want to, you know, it's a memory for the rest of the life.
and your print will always be on that memory.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at your photography business and you provide advertising and marketing materials in both English and Arabic, do you see a demand for more inclusion in languages in Atlantic Canada for newcomers? Like, or are you seeing a lack of it?
Honestly, specifically now, yes, we need because you know, 7 years ago when I came to Nova Scotia, probably there was one other Middle Eastern ethnic restaurant
Yes.
in the city.
Yeah.
And now we've seen now at least I know there's the 3 Syrian restaurants that I know of, and you know, we have the Afghan people are coming over. So give it a year, we'll have a lot of Afghan food, and then now Ukrainians are here. So again, give it some time, and you will see a lot of, you know. That's why we need more content in multiple languages. And I'm very proud that, like, if you drive on Bedford Highway, you'll see different signs in different languages. So that's amazing.
I like how you went to food.
Of course.
And it is true that when you look at the last 5 to 7 years, and we always, I guess, talk about like, wow, the positive effect that newcomers have on Halifax and in such a short period of time. And it at least in my life with my family and friends, it does relate to food, because I get excited when I'm like, a Syrian restaurant. Oh, I've never tried that before. I can't wait for it to open.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know,
It brings
food
us
brings
together.
everybody.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Why? Why is that? I guess it's just because it's always delicious. You're never going to be disappointed. And yeah, I think, you know, growing up in the Halifax area for most of my life, it is nice to see just different flavors, different experiences, and then it makes us appreciate, you know, that the culture is coming.
Absolutely.
And of course, we'll be more inclusive and try to include more languages.
Yeah. And that's why I started my YouTube channel. When I first came here, when they told me you'll be studying in Halifax, I Googled, that's a hilarious thing. I Googled Halifax. And I don't know, I was reading a blog. First of all, there was no videos of Halifax in 2016, like, except from the touristy
What were we hiding?
tourism Nova Scotia kind of, like, you know,
Those
highlight
nice, like,
videos.
drone photos.
Exactly, yeah. But there's no actual, like, someone's experience living in Halifax. And that was the whole idea why I started the YouTube channel. But I was reading in one of the blogs that, the second most spoken language in Halifax is Arabic. And I'm like, what? How come I didn't hear about this? But I guess from the Lebanese community who's here, probably someone from the Lebanese community wrote that blog. But yeah, and when I came here, I wanted to share my experience, especially as a student living in Halifax, not only in English but also in Arabic, because I know a lot of people back home would love to come to Canada. And you know, from my experience so far in Atlantic Canada, the people are amazing, and you know, it's a perfect place to start a family here. So that's why I wanted to show, you know, first of all, as a student, what's the experience, what to expect, how much is it going to cost you, how to register for classes, what is NSCC, what is Dalhousie, so all of these things, from financial to education to whatever, just like day-to-day student life. And in my current work at ISANS, I still see people come into ISANS and they point at me. And first of all, they look back and forth, is that him? Is that him? And then they point at me, and then I smile, and they come to me and they say, oh, are you YouTube? And I'm like, well, and I'm like, I am on YouTube.
Are you YouTube?
Yes.
I am the whole of YouTube.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and they're like, oh my God, we saw your videos, and that's why we chose Nova Scotia. And I'm like, well, I hope you made a correct, a good choice. But yeah, I feel honored, which is funny because my brother, he always makes fun of me, and he's like, nobody's watching your videos.
Wow.
And one day We were walking in, where were we? I think Micmac Mall. And there were a group of, immigrants. They're like young kids. They're at the mall. And they came to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I saw you on YouTube. Can we take a photo with you?" And I'm like, "Not only are you gonna take a photo of me, my brother is gonna take that photo."
Yeah.
so I made
With
him take
all
that
of
photo.
the different cameras, all
Exactly.
the different phones. Yeah.
So I was like, "Do you believe that people are watching my YouTube channel now?"
Did he think you paid those kids to say that?
I know.
What advice would you give someone considering moving to Atlantic Canada?
Do it. Not only, again, I just had this conversation with a cousin of mine. She's in Syria and she's thinking of moving to Canada. And she's asking me, "Is it true that it's always snowy there?" And I'm like, "No, there's long winter, but no." And she's like, "Do you recommend?" And I'm like, "In a heartbeat." Of course, especially Atlantic Canada. The nature is amazing. The people are amazing, very nice. Says actually, my mom and my sister just landed finally in Canada last month.
To live here?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I started the sponsorship application for them in 2019, and because of COVID, the whole thing got delayed. But finally, they just landed February 7th. And so far, I'm giving them the Atlantic Canada experience. I'm acting as their tour guide.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the waterfront. Oh, taking photos here and there. And yesterday we just went to the valley. Actually, unfortunately, the weather wasn't that perfect. But yeah, but no, come to Canada in a heartbeat. Don't even think twice. Especially Atlantic Canada. You'll notice the difference once you leave Atlantic Canada to other provinces. You notice immediately the difference of people.
Yeah.
Absolutely do it. It's the best decision I ever made in my life.
Excellent. Thank you, Mohammad, and thank you to everyone joining us today for this episode of Our Guest Is. If you don't want to miss the next episode, make sure you subscribe. You can find us on myeastcoastexperience.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and YouTube. Plus, don't forget you can follow My East Coast Experience on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I'm Natalie Fournier. Thanks again, and hope you join us for our next episode.